President Obama will deliver the State of the Union address next week, and following his speech, the Republican Party will give its response. It's a big deal to be the person who delivers that response. You're addressing the nation right after the president gives this big, important, constitutionally directed speech. So parties aim to pick rising stars, right? People with the gravitas to do the honors and people who they want to get a lot of attention. Today, the Republican Party announced their pick to deliver this year's Republican response to the State of the Union. It's Indiana Governor Mitch Danials. And here's why they've done that. Here's what the Republicans say about what they're communicating to the nation by choosing Mitch Daniels. They say he has, quote, compiled a solid record of effective government and fiscal responsibility, making him well-suited to outline Republicans' better solutions to the challenges Americans are facing. House Speaker John Boehner added, quote, Mitch Daniels is a fierce advocate for smaller, less costly, and more accountable government, and he has the record to prove it. He has the record to prove it. Do you want to know what Mitch Daniels' last job was? He was George W. Bush's budget director. Remember the budget under George W. Bush? This is what happened to the deficit while Mitch Daniels was in charge of the budget. When he started as Bush's budget guy, we had a nearly $130 billion budget surplus. By the time he left, we had an almost $380 billion budget deficit. Thank you, Bush tax cuts. Mitch Daniels' other responsibility under President Bush was estimating the cost of the Iraq War, which he said would probably cost $50 or $60 billion or so. This is the actual cost of the Iraq War, $800 billion. Mitch Daniels estimated, and he refused to provide specifics at the time, that it would cost less than a tenth of that amount. So that's the Mitch Daniels record. That's his fiscal record that the Republicans want to highlight with their State of the Union speaker this year. Yes, of course, that is all in the past. That's all Mitch Daniels' past. That's his resume. What about his time since? What about his time since as Indiana governor? Yes, what about that? This is what it was like in Indiana during Mitch Daniels' own State of the State address earlier this month. I don't know if anybody heard him give that address over the hollering and protest hullabaloo outside the legislative chamber while he was trying to speak. Indiana is alive with outrage at Governor Mitch Daniels' effort to strip union rights right now. Those efforts have even lit up a whole new part of the Indiana Republican Party that had not been activist before, or that at least had been loyalist before, but is now pledging to go after any Republican who votes to support Governor Daniels' union-stripping right-to-work legislation. The group, which is calling themselves Lunch Pail Republicans, has formed a PAC. They say they've already raised hundreds of thousands of dollars. Today, they wrote to Indiana Republican legislators telling them not to be intimidated by their own party's leadership into voting to strip union rights. The Lunch Pail Republicans say they will financially support, they will have the backs of any Republican who votes against Mitch Daniels on stripping union rights in the Hoosier state. The Super Bowl is in Indiana in a couple of weeks, Indianapolis. And the NFL Players Association has been saying very loudly and repeatedly that they are on the side of the Democrats and the Lunch Pail Republicans. They are against Mitch Daniels' union-stripping bill. The pro-union rights protesters at the State House have now started chanting, "Occupy Super Bowl." The Indiana AFL-CIO says it's not an idle threat. They said today that the Super Bowl is an opportunity to highlight how inhospitable Indiana is becoming for working men and women. But before the country turns its eyes to Indianapolis and the Super Bowl, and its protests against the Republican governor there, supported by the NFL Players Association, before the country turns its eyes to the Super Bowl, first the country will turn our eyes to the State of the Union address. And immediately thereafter, to that Indiana governor who is dragging his state into this huge, embarrassing, and very unpopular fight. And he's the guy who the Republicans want to be seen as their star player right now.